It's the Deadline Junkies podcast with your hosts, Jordan Imiola, Kirsten Porter, and Rand Shammy.
Well, our guest today is Michael Waldron, head writer and executive producer of Loki. He is currently writing the latest Star Wars installment, all while gearing up to promote his new show, Heels, a wrestling drama for stars, which he created and executive produced. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you guys for having me. Hello.
We're glad to have you. Our first question for you is, what inspired you to become a writer and how did you first get into it?
This is just going to sound like I'm promoting my show, but I guess it's wrestling. I was a huge wrestling fan growing up, and that was probably my, from the time I was a little kid, I was really just taken by that serialized storytelling and everything, and so that was at least where my love of TV came from, and from ongoing stories and all that. And then just movies, I wore out my copies of, Star Wars and Indiana Jones and everything. And I just wasn't really good at anything else. It felt like I was the one thing I could maybe have a shot at doing. And so I moved to LA and went for it and was just very, very fortunate. Met a lot of great people who were really supportive.
Did you ever consider writing for wrestling?
Yeah, I think I certainly considered it. I got lucky in that I got a internship on the first season of Rick and Morty, my second year in LA. And I was in grad school at Pepperdine getting an MFA in screenwriting. And so I was like, I didn't have to break in. That was the way I broke in. I think that had that opportunity not come along, I would have quickly started barking up the tree of I know a thing or two about wrestling. How do I get into that world?
Sorry, to back up, how did you get the internship at Rick and Morty?
I had a classmate that was working on the first season who was just a good dude and got me an interview over there at the animation studio that was producing it. And they felt like I'd be the right person to put stickers on books and change.
I was just thinking, this guy looks like he knows how to put stickers on things.
A lot of stickers on books.
And then you would return to Rick and Morty as a producer years later. What was that jump like?
That was the grand return, the big "I told you so" tour. Yeah, I told you guys I was talented. No, that was. I came up under Dan Harmon, and after the first season of Rick and Morty, I was a writer's PA on season 5 of Community, Dan's show. And I had written over that time the pilot for Heels, this wrestling show. And so that kind of took off and got me noticed as a writer and not a sticker putter right around that time. And that kind of carried me through, I guess, 2017. We'd sold the show to Stars, and then they had picked it up and we'd had a mini room that I had run, and we'd written a good deal the first season, and we just couldn't get it over the hump to get it made, couldn't get it cast. And so it went on a shelf. And so then in 2018, I was like, all right, well, so much for my meteoric rise. My career is a failure. And I came slinking back to Dan and I said, will you hire me as a writer? And they did, they brought me on. And so I got to write for season 4 of Rick and Morty, which was amazing and so cool to get to go back as a writer.
Yeah, not a bad place to slink back to.
No. So great and so valuable because the truth is I'd had 2 jobs in a writer's room at that point, writer's PA and showrunner. And there's a hard leap to running a writer's room. The only person you know who to tell to do is the PA. It's like, all right, here's how the lunch menu should look. And so it was great to go to Rick and Morty and get the experience as a writer on the staff, work under Dan. I worked under Mike McMahon, who was the showrunner of that season. Mike has since created Solar Opposites, Star Trek Lower Decks, and was a great leader and teacher. And that was just a great experience that, got me ready for the next step, which was Loki the following year.
I love hearing about like projects that are like your babies and your passion projects. And it seems like Heels is that for you. How did it come off the shelf?
Yeah, well, I had finally made my peace with its demise. I'd stopped like driving past stars with my wife and looking at our old writer's room and being like sighing. She's like, this is awful. So you gotta stop doing this. And I made my peace with it, and we were writing Loki in I guess the spring or summer of 2019, and they called and said, look, we, as we said, we still love this and we're looking at reviving it. And then, I was not going to be able to run it. And so we had to find a partner, and that became Mike O'Malley, who, is a tremendous actor and had graduated into writing. He'd worked on the staff of Shameless, and then he created Survivor's Remorse on Starz. And so Mike came in and really helped finish kind of the writing of the show, of which there was still a good amount to do. And he was the captain that saw that thing through production. So I had to let him adopt my child, and he was, and now we co-parent in a way, and the metaphor is going to fall apart, but it's been a really pleasant, great collaboration.
Nice. Okay, before we get more into Heels, I'm going to back it up again, and I want to know more about what it was like working with these big franchises like Marvel and now Star Wars.
It's been a pleasure. I mean, it's, I guess you would think it would maybe be, I mean, it was terrifying at first. I mean, I was absolutely, terrified every day. It was like, so it's been great. But as you work with Kevin Feige, you realize like, oh, this guy is the best guy, the best collaborator. There's so much belief in you when you get hired there, and they really they let you find it. They understand that stories take time to develop and everything, and they gave myself and my writing staff the space we needed to find Loki, to find the tone and everything. And so for me, working with Kevin specifically in this world of big IP, it's been an absolute dream.
Nice. So did you find that you had a lot of creative freedom and that you weren't faced with a lot of restrictions?
Well, there's a character named Alligator Loki.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look no further than that to see how little restrictions I had.
That isn't something from a comic book. That's from your mind.
That was just my own stupid idea.
Oh, good. They do allow stupid ideas.
Yeah. No, it's a fully collaborative, democratized process over there, and it felt like, felt similar collaborating with Marvel, with those guys, whether it's on a TV show or on a feature. It feels like a great comedy writer's room in a way, in the sense that it's just yes-anding, and the building of ideas, a fearlessness when it comes to, is there a better idea? Can we change direction? Can we beat this? That I was very comfortable, because that was the world I came up in working under Dan.
Awesome. I loved Alligator Loki too. I think it made that episode so unique and funny.
I think it was the best stupid idea you've ever had.
That's what I was fishing for. I just reel it in with that. Yeah.
Can you describe a typical day on the Loki Writers Room, and like what was the schedule like?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, we started at 10, me rushing in, realizing, oh shit, I can't be late. I'm charged. Speeding down the 134, inhaling a hot spinach feta wrap, Starbucks, getting heartburn, having to talk through it the first 30 minutes of the day to say, all right, here's what we have to accomplish. We have to invent time travel today. And then it was a lot of, we had such a great writing staff, and it was a lot of like different, incredibly brilliant people taking turns going up to the whiteboard and drawing lines with other squiggly lines coming off of it, saying, no, this is how it is, and having really, really passionate arguments about things that just simply do not exist. And it was a blast, but good. And it was a blast every day.
Yeah, was that, so the heartburn and everything, was that also from stress from the turnaround, or having to create different?
That was probably just eating too fast. No, that was just eating too fast. It was hot. Those things are hot. It was stressful, to be sure. It was stressful in the sense that, procedurally speaking, in most cases, when you start a writer's room, you've already written the pilot. So you figured out what the show is, and you've defined the tone, and you kind of know who the characters are and how they talk and everything. We had Loki, obviously, so we had the benefit of our main character was very, very well defined. But we didn't have a first episode. We didn't really know the supporting cast. Mobius was a character that, I had to kind of create out of thin air, because there wasn't much to go off of with that character in the comics. And so I think it was a challenge. Part of the challenge of it was that we had the usual amount of time in a writer's room, but part of that, I had to also be writing the pilot. Mm-hmm. So, that was, fortunately, I was able to rely on our writing staff to keep the ball moving and everything while I was off, jamming out a draft. So yeah, it was challenging, but everybody was up to the task.
And what was the turnaround for each script?
We, again, standard writer's room, 20 weeks was the initial period. And we at least got first drafts of everything, of every episode in at the end of 20 weeks, which was my only goal, because then you can go in and tear them down completely, but at least you've got something, for production to start moving on. That was the point that Kate came on, our director, with the benefit of her fresh eyes and her great ideas, and really helped as we went into the, like, okay, now we've got the basic blueprint. Now let's make this thing great.
Do you personally have a favorite episode of the show, and what makes it your favorite? And it can be the pilot.
It can't be. It can be.
Out.
Yeah. Or the alligator episode.
No, I love all my children equally and differently. They're all. I'm particularly proud of the pilot because of how much heavy lifting it has to do, just in terms of establishing this world, bringing this version of Loki emotionally up to speed to where the previous version of Loki was. And I love, my favorite parts of the show are just the conversations. So I love that face off between he and Mobius and that, but yeah, I'm partial to all of them in different ways.
Nice. So with both Loki and Heels, you how do you balance making a villain protagonist likable?
I think it's humanity, it's finding, it's what's relatable. It's when Loki is going through the processing at the TVA, waiting in line, being put through all this stuff. It's like suddenly he's doing things that all of us, even though we've never tried to take over Earth with an army of aliens, we have been through that, and we know what it's like to feel small under the boot of bureaucracy, and we know what it's like to feel unworthy under the shadow cast by our own family. And so I think it's just those moments of human relatability. The audience can connect to anything as long as they see themselves in it.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to heels, I love how you started the pilot with saying, like, in the wrestling world, villains are known as heels and heroes are known as faces. Can you tell us, like, how long has the idea of heels been around, and how'd you come up with it?
I came up with the idea, I think in like 2012. I was driving cross country with my wife, and it's weird that I remember this, but we were like driving through Texas, and I was just like, it just popped into my head, and I was like, the idea of a show where the bad guy in the ring is a decent guy outside of it, and the good guy in the ring is a little bit of a more broken person outside of it. That duality, that idea came into my head, and we got home. We were driving home for the holidays, and I just that night just scribbled down a bunch of character names and everything. So I guess it was, I don't know, December 21st, 2012. Weirdly enough, that was when it came into existence.
Nice. Did everything from that night stick? Like all the character names, all the same?
I mean, I do think like Jack and Ace Spade, like that was a case of like first thought, best thought. Don't overthink it. I just thought those were cool names.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, a lot of that stayed. I'm sure if I looked at that notebook, I'd be like, oh Jesus, this was really bad ideas. It didn't make it.
Did you ever want to be a wrestler or like play around doing that?
Of course, but look at me. I'm a writer. I'm a screenwriter. You become a screenwriter to do all the things that you wish you could actually do.
Well, would you be a villain or the hero?
I don't know. It's easy to say I'd be a heel because it's fun. It's fun to play a villain, but like, I don't know. It's that hate that would be tough. Maybe I'd want to be a good guy.
So I love in Heels, there are a lot of great relationships. Do you have a favorite type of relationship you like to write? Like friends, family, lovers, coworkers?
Yeah. I mean, I love a good romance, as is well documented. I do, I like a good will they won't they, but also I like friends. I don't know. There's something about friendship, unlikely friendships that I always find compelling. Pairing characters that you wouldn't expect to be friends. It's like Jack and Willie in Heels, for instance. Their friendship is almost like a babysitter. It's like I imagine she used to babysit him, and then they grew up. It's like that friendship is really fun, and yeah, just the unexpected connections that we form with people that we seemingly don't have much in common with. Loki and Mobius is a great example of that, and and something that I learned, part of what made that relationship so profound on the page, the reason it worked was because Mobius was so patient with Loki. Mm-hmm. And that was almost like a breakthrough for me, as I felt like I was in therapy myself. Where I was like, this patience with somebody else is so emotionally resonant on the page. And I don't know, that was, yeah, I like anything like that.
Out of all the stuff you've written, is there a particular relationship that you relate to the most?
Ooh, that's a good question. A particular relationship that I relate to the most.
Or maybe wish you could relate to more.
That I wish I could.
Or is that too much?
I'm trying to think of like, who am I Mobius to? I really want to be. I really wish I could be Owen Wilson to somebody. But you know, I think that there's probably at times, you know, a mirroring between the relationship between Jack and his wife in Heels. You know, he's a guy who's struggling with a creative endeavor, and she is very much not the nagging wife. She is somebody who is just dealing with the practicalities of life and is supporting his dream, but also is like, we can't afford 100 GoPros or whatever, or a fog machine. You know, you need to check yourself. It's like there's some of us in there. There's some of you know, Loki and Sylvie, maybe two halves of a whole.
Did you have any favorite wrestlers growing up?
Oh yeah, Sting, absolutely. The bleach blonde hair version and the Crow version, and then Shawn Michaels. Love both of those guys. Big inspirations for me.
Mine was Rey Mysterio.
He's awesome. Cruiserweight champion. So great. I mean, he's so, his longevity in the sport. One of the few like WCW guys that, like, when that promotion got absorbed, like went over to the WWE and became a world champion. Like really crossed over, multi-generational. He's awesome.
I only really know The Undertaker.
He's great too. That's a good one to know.
And he went from a heel to being a hero.
He was kind of always just like, I guess ostensibly should have been a heel, but just was so cool that it's like, even as a kid, I was like, I know I should be afraid of him, but he's awesome. I love him.
Yeah.
Michael, do you have a favorite actor that you've worked with? And what was the casting experience like on Loki? How much say did you have in that?
God, I mean, all the actors I've worked with have been fantastic. I mean, Tom Hiddleston, obviously, in building that was amazing. I got very close to Benedict Cumberbatch and Lizzie Olsen and Rachel McAdams, kind of Benedict Wong, that whole cast of Doctor Strange too, because I was on set for that, you know, every day. So all those guys I feel particularly close to, because we made that movie together over in London, you know, locked down during a pandemic. And it feels like we went to war together. And as for the casting of Loki, yeah, I mean, it was part of the brain trust, throwing out ideas and everything. I would give Kate all the credit though, as far as like Sophia, Owen, you know, Jonathan and everything. It was her driving that ship and then convincing these guys to you know, selling our crazy story to them, and getting them to come on board.
I know we're bouncing around your career a lot, but Community was a really beloved show. Can you tell us about your experience as a production assistant on Community?
honest to God, the high of everything I've done, and I've been so fortunate at a young age to do a lot of cool stuff. The highlight of my career was driving onto the Paramount lot the very first time for that first day as a PA on Community. And I'll never hit that level of excitement again, I don't think. Wow. Because that was my favorite show when I was living in Georgia. Community, I just couldn't believe how good it was. And so then to be working on it was great. I was taken under the wing by so many writers there. Dino Stamatopoulos, such a dear friend of mine. Chris McKenna and Eric Summers were on that staff, who are now writing Spider-Man: No Way Home. We're in this Marvel world together. So I just got to sit in the room when I wasn't getting lunch, dinner, coffees for 30 people. I got to sit in the room. I got to pitch jokes. I got a couple jokes in the show. I had way more jokes bomb in the room, which was, in hindsight, the most valuable experience of all. To learn that it's okay to have a shitty idea.
How do you get over that?
You just do it. It's like anything else. It's just practice. You pitch an idea and you realize that nobody's judging you, that it's just making something's hard. Writing's hard. You got to have them, there's got to get through the bad ideas to get to the good ones. And so that whole thing was so special. I love that show. And I remember being on set because Joe and Anthony Russo, obviously they directed the pilot of Community, and they were, they'd done a bunch of that show, and they did a couple episodes my season. And I remember bringing Chris McKenna a coffee, and we were in Annie's room, Alison Brie's character's room, and Joe Russo was there directing, but on a laptop there was like something they were like cutting or something, previs or something for just a fight scene in Captain America: Winter Soldier, which they were. It was like, oh God, I can't believe these guys are doing Winter Soldier. And it's just crazy now to walk back from that moment. Yeah, it's cool.
Do you have any favorite books on writing or just general writing advice?
I think reading scripts is the best thing you can do. There's a lot of scripts online. Find the script for Boogie Nights and read that. Or just think about your favorite movies and find any of those scripts that are available online and read them all. Don't just read your favorite parts. Don't just read the beginning and the end. Read it and watch the way scenes come together and just the way dialogue comes alive on the page and everything. And I think that's one of the first and most important things you can do. And then, Stephen King's On Writing is a great book about just writing and the creative process. Absolutely. I think that's a good one as well.
Why specifically Boogie Nights script?
It's the best. It's the best movie. Create the script for the best movie.
What makes it the best?
It's just so cool. And then read it and be like, this asshole was like 25 when he wrote it, and then just quit. That's what I always think about doing.
Great advice.
I think that script has just such great dialogue, and reading, you can learn structure and stuff reading books and everything. Dialogue is, to me, a lot of times where the magic happens. And so developing an ear for it, and just seeing how it looks on the page.
That shows in Heels. I told you I would tell you how I really felt about Heels, and this is how I feel. Great dialogue.
Thank you. That's that's also a testament to Mike O'Malley, because he did a lot of work on those scripts and everything. But thank you.
You've grown a lot from like PA to staff writing to creating multiple shows. Any advice for support staff and trying to leap to staff writer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always be writing. Certainly, when you have those jobs, what you're playing for, what you're working for is the chance to have somebody that, is in a position that can help you, that can elevate you you can cash in your chips, so to speak. And they'll be willing to read a script, to read a piece of material. And I always say, I really believe one great piece of material can and will change your life. And so, if you're on a support staff, making sure that you've got that sample that when the time comes, because you don't quite know when it's going to come, is what happened to me. My eventual manager, who was just an assistant at the time, reached out to the production secretary on Community after we wrapped, and lying said he was a young agent looking to discover talent on the production staff. And so I sent the pilot for Heels. And that was literally one of these phone calls that bumped me off the Zoom, was that guy. Here we are 10 years later, him calling me. So it's, I had a script ready that I felt like was in good enough shape that I could share. And the other thing that I try to tell people is, know what you want to do and declare it. I really benefited early on, as I was getting to know Dan and everything, I was like, I want to be a writer. I'm the writer. I'm the intern who puts stickers on books but wants to be a writer. And everybody quickly, knew to put me in that bucket, and I benefited from that.
Awesome. Do you have any writing routines or habits that you do every day?
Not recently. These days, I just do press. I just talk. It's like, my wife was like, "Are you ever going to write again?" I was like, "I don't know. Maybe I'll just do this. I kind of like this." But I like to wake up early. And I like to walk my dog. I go for long walks with my dog and sort of figure out where I'm going. If I'm working on something, like, where am I going that day, and try and then sit down and just find it on the page. I'm not a great outliner. I'm much more of a dialogue driven, let's see where the story takes you kind of writer. I like to just get in there and start letting the characters talk to each other.
So you're saying we need to get a dog to be a good writer. That's what I just took away from that. Okay, good.
Yes, exactly. Get a dog. That's what you need.
Okay, so we've talked a ton about your shows and all of that. Now I'm curious, what shows do you watch, or do you have time outside of all your PR work?
I just watch my own interviews on YouTube. I just
with your dog.
I just Google my name and I'm like, oh, look, great answer. Good job. I'm let's see, just last night I watched the first episode of The White Lotus. I was like, holy shit, this is the best. That's amazing. New show on HBO. Mike White show. That's so good. I've been watching For All Mankind, I think is an awesome show on Apple TV. What do I love? I love Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, if you ask me my favorite show, it's probably that. That was an inspiration on Loki, just in the way that it's like every episode felt so different and so inventive. So yeah, I try to. It's nice because it's like, now that I'm working on more in the feature space, I can watch TV again. I'm stoked for Succession to come back. Although
Yeah.
maybe we'll be up against them at the Emmys, so maybe I might.
They can come back, just not that strong.
Yeah, it'll suck.
Oh, well, thank you so much for hanging out with us and chatting with us.
Thanks, guys. This is a blast.
Subscribe for more episodes and check out Sketches. Sketches written and performed by Deadline Junkies. Watch it at skedjes.com. Thanks for watching the Deadline Junkies podcast.